The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and we're at Villanova University. And I'd like to talk about some insight in financial assistance. My guest today is the Director of Financial Assistance. Her name is Bonnie Behm, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Great, thank you for coming. So I usually start my guests where they went to college. So where did you go to school?
How much time do you have? I've been to a few.
Okay.
I started originally at Temple, thinking I would finish a degree there, then realized I wanted to get something, right, instead of being generic, a little more specific. So I kind of had a mid-change in the middle of my freshman year and decided I wanted to go into radiography. So I started looking at programs. Most of them in those days were hospital-based. But Thomas Jefferson University was starting a bachelor's degree. So I went to apply for a hospital-based and then applied for the bachelor's degree. Got admitted to Jefferson, said, you know what, I'll do that versus just going into a hospital program. So I transferred out of Temple, finished my bachelor's in radiography at Jefferson. In the meantime, got very involved with student affairs. Because it was a new program too, they were like really interested in the student who was active and involved, so they recruited me to go into admissions after that. So finished my degree in radiography, but instead of going there, I got a few job offers, but was offered a job in admission. Said, I'll try that. Because I eventually wanted to go into teaching in radiography. I didn't want to go clinical the rest of my life.
Gotcha.
So went for a few months, that turned into a few years, that turned into an even longer period in admissions. Then I realized I wanted to get a master's degree. One of the benefits at Jefferson was that they would pay for my master's. So I thought, well, I'm in a hospital, I've got a hospital background, I'll go for a master's in healthcare administration. That kind of fit in with everything. But in the meantime, my work world was on the side, and I was working in admissions, but learning about financial aid to talk to the students and families about aid, and kind of kept dabbling in financial aid. And continued to pursue that master's degree in healthcare administration. Went back to Temple, because they had a healthcare administration program. But again, had to leave Temple because the program that I was in required an internship, and I couldn't afford to stop working. So left Temple and finished my master's at St. Joe's. And in the meantime, kind of things worked out that admissions was good, but I didn't want to travel. After 5 years, I was a little tired of it. So then transitioned over to financial aid, and the rest is history.
Well, we'll get into that. But usually, how about in high school? When did you start thinking about college? Was it freshman year? Was it senior year? When did college start really getting into your mind?
I think I always knew I wanted to go to college, and where I went, it was either you go into a business background. In those days, it was typing, or
Sure.
going into the work world, or academics. In fact, they wouldn't even let the academic students take typing. So I kind of was, since freshman year, knew that I was going to go to college. Not sure for what. Maybe nursing, and then all of a sudden I got into plays. So I was really excited about maybe going into theater, and then something happened and said, you know what, I think I need something more concrete.
Yeah.
But it was always in my mind. I don't think there was ever a choice that I wasn't going to go to college. And so, applied to a few different schools, was admitted to them, but the reality of it was financially, a few of them that I applied to I couldn't have afforded, so then went to Temple, but it was a great spot.
So you started out at Temple and then went to Thomas Jefferson. Was there a big reason why? Just because of the major, or?
It was exactly that, for the major. Temple had nursing and some other allied health careers, but they didn't have radiography, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go into nursing. I wanted something healthcare, and Jefferson was the only game in town with a bachelor's. There were hospital programs in radiography at that point in time. But again, I always knew I wanted to maybe do more than just clinical.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of in the back of my mind thought, okay, maybe I'll do clinical for a little bit and then go into teaching, which is why the bachelor's degree really enticed me at that point in time. So it was a good choice. I mean, I did what I needed to do at the point. It just, life happened, and I didn't
So
pursue
now
the first degree.
So then you went into admissions. What did you think about admissions at that point?
I was working for the school that I loved. I had been at Jefferson. It was a great place. It was small. I was involved in everything. So it was a great opportunity to talk to other students and families about the, not only the career, but the institution. So I really liked it. The only thing with admissions after a while, I kind of got tired of the travel.
Sure.
Traveling's great. I love it. I'll go anywhere, all parts of the world. But staying in a Holiday Inn all the time gets a little tiring.
Sure.
And it's like, I just wanted to hang up the suitcase for a while. And so at that point, again, it was real early when financial aid was becoming more prominent.
Mm-hmm.
And I really took a liking to it. I mean, I had to know it to go on the road.
Was that also at Thomas
Jefferson, yes.
as well?
I worked at Jefferson for 19 years, and I went over to Swarthmore for a little bit, and then I came to Villanova.
Oh, so you've been at Villanova for just a few years?
About 18 years.
Oh, 18 years. That's a long time.
Yes, a long time.
Okay. So as the Director of Financial Services, Financial Assistant at Villanova, what are your responsibilities?
Responsibility is oversee the office, complete management of the office, and to make sure that our office is expending the federal, state, and institutional dollars as, compliant with all the regs, and also making sure that we use those dollars to recruit a class.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of financial aid is, is not only assisting students who can't fund, but also molding the class with the dollars that we have. Unfortunately, it's not an unlimited pot. We have a very significant financial aid pool of resources. The university is very generous, but we also need to make sure that within the dollars we're allotted, that we bring in the class that we want.
So now some of the money comes from the government, some of the money comes from the alumni. How does the money all come into the school?
Essentially, in financial aid, you have about 4 sources. You have federal sources, then state, depending on where the student resides, where their state of residency is, then the institution, and then the 4th one is outside private resources. University money could be anything where the university is just discounting, or alumni support or endowment, or from not just alum but anybody else. So there are 4 major sources, and then within, like I said, the institution, there's a lot of places where those dollars come in.
So now, high school students that are applying at Villanova University, what type of monies are they looking at when they come here? Does everybody that come here get any kind of benefit, or it's for only a certain select few students that are at the university?
We offer both merit and need, but the primary assistance is need-based. So no, not everybody gets aid. Merit is just a recognition, and it's a small recognition. We're not throwing a lot of merit money out there. Right now, it's just a small recognition. We want to use our resources to help those students who could not otherwise afford a Villanova education. And that's basically the need-based process. So that's where the emphasis of our dollars are. So my office is to take a look at the families apply. Once they apply, we determine their financial need, and then we hopefully come up with a good package that enables that family to bridge that gap between what they can afford and what they can't afford to make a Villanova education possible for them.
And so do you utilize the FAFSA that they apply at as well? Because that's that family contribution that most families go through, and how much the university gives?
We utilize both the FAFSA as well as using the College Board profile. The FAFSA we have to use for any federal or state dollars that we offer. We use the CSS or the College Board profile to determine institutional eligibility for the institutional dollars. Little different formulas, and the profile gives us a little deeper dive into the family. Not all schools use the profile, but for schools that are, I would say, more competitive and have maybe some more resources, it helps them take a little deeper dive into it, and also can target some things. With the FAFSA, it's kind of cut and dry, black and white. We have a little bit of professional judgment. We have professional judgment we can use when there are unusual circumstances, but the College Board lets us look at other things that are important in determining whether or not a family has financial need.
So do you work closely with the admissions director or the admissions department?
We work close with them, but we are known as a need-blind institution. What that means is the admissions office admits the student. They don't contact us and say, what's the financial need? So they're not making an admissions decision based on a family's ability to pay. The student is admitted based on their credentials, their academic credentials. Our financial aid package, however, is based on their students who are admitted and what their financial need is. So we work close with them in determining strategies for the institution, where we want to be, what we want to do. Have to. We really need to work with them, but I'm not calling them up, or they're not calling me up and say, hey, what's the information on this student? That's a need blind situation.
Gotcha. So I've had a lot of admissions people on the show, and they always talk about tags and hooks in admissions, things like being an athlete, or having some kind of fine art, or doing something like a charitable organization or something. Does that get the student anything at the school?
It's probably a little hook for admission. Financial aid wise, we're primarily need-based. There might be a teeny bit in that where I think we'd probably call it preferential packaging, where there might be a little bit of a bump. And I have to go back a little bit. We're not currently meeting 100% of need.
Mm-hmm.
So if the student has, X amount of dollars of need, we might come a little short for some students, and so we might beef up the package for a student who has a little bit of something extra. Not a whole lot, because primarily, and I really need to emphasize that, primarily it's need-based.
Mm-hmm.
Their extra interest, their extra effort, community service, and all of that is really taken into consideration on the admission side.
Gotcha.
At Villanova. All the different schools, they all have all different kinds of models.
Right. So does anything happen with athletes at the school? Are most of them financially needed, where they get scholarships, or is that coming from the alumni funding those particular scholarships?
Athletics is a whole different area. I don't dabble much into it. They basically tell us who's getting the athletic scholarships, and the funding could be from a lot of different places.
It does.
But that's mainly outside of our office. We're just kind of at the end combining all the resources. We have some athletes who are full ride, because of either division, sport, all that. We have some athletes who don't get athletic money, who are need-based, and we're just treating them just as any other student who is not an athlete.
Okay. And how about at the school? So students that are coming to the school here, financially, what are they expecting? Are they expecting anything when they start applying to Villanova University? Is a parent looking for something right away, or is everybody looking for something? Because college costs these days are pretty high.
I think everybody would love to have some opportunity for the school to help them, but in some situations, if again we're primarily need-based, there's many families that we're not able to offer any kind of grant, and that's what the family's looking for. Every family has the opportunity to borrow the federal direct loan, so every student has that opportunity. Families, if they choose, could borrow what's known as a direct plus loan, but when the families are applying for aid, most of them in the back of their minds are thinking grants and scholarships, the free money.
Sure.
So that's what they want. It's really their financial situation that's going to determine whether they're going to be eligible for that, except for the small group of students who get merit. But again, institutions are all different. There are some institutions whose focus is merit, where they'll offer merit money and very, very small amount of need. Very, very
So merit money, what is exactly merit money? Is it just university money that's allocated for anything that the university wants that be allocated for?
Merit money could be that the university sets aside money for that, or it could be donors that have set aside. So the university, or it could be the donor that makes that decision. And it's defined by the institution. If they want to bring in a pool of academically talented students with a certain GPA, certain SAT, certain rank, that's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a good example might be a school of performing arts. They might not be looking for the highest GPA or the best SAT, not that they wouldn't love that, but
Right.
if they've got a first-year violinist and they're really interested in that, and the student had a few C's, well, that first-year violin might be a little more important. They may also have scholarship for that,
Mm-hmm.
because they want to make sure that they get the best, violinist.
And that student, by being financially needed, actually enhances their ability to get even more then.
It depends, because again, if we're talking about that, school that's the performing arts school who just wants that violinist, they might have a full ride scholarship for the first year violin.
Gotcha.
So you really families and students need to take a look at each of the schools and kind of see what their emphasis is. Is it just need, regardless of some sort of kind of performance? But it could also be within an institution. There could be need, but then there also could either be merit or some sort of performance-based scholarship.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of homework on the families to, to see what they can get.
So now, does the financial department, do they do anything at the high school level? Do they actually go to the high schools, or is it pretty much when they come to the tours of the school, the financial department is open to those families?
In most institutions, when I worked at other institutions, we didn't go out and do a lot of financial aid nights. But since the time I started at Villanova, they're very community oriented, and we do a lot of financial aid nights in the area. I don't go out with the admissions and do, 50 states tours of that. That's I gave up that suitcase years ago. But we do at least 25 financial aid nights where I'll go out to the high school, if we're invited, and do a financial aid night to just give them the basic information. And it's not about Villanova. It's basically about financial aid in general, so that families understand, whether they're looking at Villanova or any other institution, community college, state, whatever, how they go about the basic process. So, we're not on the road, and when families come here, when they're doing tours, if they want to come to our office, that's fine. We would, ask them to do that. Open houses, they're more than welcome. Any kind of on-campus program, group presentations, we're usually there to represent, instead of having hundreds of families come to our office.
Yeah. Now, do families come to the office when they do tours at the school?
The interesting thing here is, you would think that we would be extremely busy, and they don't as much as I thought that they should. Which really surprises me. I would think for such a large investment, probably one of the largest investments they're going to make, if not the largest, I would think that families should spend more time up front with the financial aid office rather than just applying and then kind of praying that they get the package. We don't discourage it. We would encourage it, but I think they're on campus. They want to see the dorms and all the other facilities
and then leave.
And leave, which I sometimes was like, what about us?
Wow, and so when you do see the families that come, what are some of the questions that they ask you for the university?
A lot of them are concerned about, what the application process is, what the scholarship is. Scholarship is always the first, and we've got to remind them that it's, we're primarily need-based. So, and plus in our institution, we don't have anything to do with scholarship. So they can ask me all the scholarship questions they want, and I guess they got to talk to admissions or some of the other committees that work with scholarship. They're also concerned about, is that aid package, is the need-based aid package the same for 4 years? What influences their aid eligibility? I'm gonna, I just heard I'm gonna be laid off, or we have 2 other students going to college 2 years later. Would that affect my aid eligibility?
Does that help families when they have multiple kids going to college at the same time?
When they have multiple kids in school at the same time, it definitely helps the family contribution.
Really?
Because it basically assumes that the family has X amount of dollars to contribute, but then has to be divided among those, among or between those other students who are going to college at that same time.
So it's better to have 4 kids in college than it does to have 1 kid.
Everything's relative, but yes. For financial aid purposes, yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So with financial aid, a lot of the students, do they ever come in after they've been at the school? Is it, do you see the same students coming back sophomore year, junior year? Does that happen?
Well, first of all, students for need-based do need to reapply every year. And yes, we do get students who come back and say, I got the package the first year, and is there something more that you can do? And if it's a financial situation that has changed, we're more than happy to. If something hasn't changed, then we need to sit down with the student and say, it was need-based, we presented that, in all of our literature to you. Is there something else that we can help with you in terms of financing if we can't increase the grant? But yeah, we get students coming back, and they should. Because if there's an issue that's preventing them from being able to pay that bill, I want them to come up so that we can either work with them in their situation or direct them to something else.
Now, do you see a lot of families coming to you with the FAFSA forms as well? Is that something that you handle as well?
We would be more than happy to work with them on the FAFSA, but the interesting thing is, since it's been on the web, there's so much communication about it, we don't get many questions of that. And I think also there's a lot of organizations that do FAFSA nights or FAFSA days, especially in Pennsylvania. And I know some of my colleagues, maybe in some of the neighboring states, a lot of the state agencies do what they call FAFSA days. And so they'll go out to the high schools and do the one-on-ones there. I think also because now that it's on the web, there's a lot more help, and it doesn't allow you to move forward. In the past, when you're filling it out on paper, you could make a mistake and you wouldn't know. Now, if you're filling it out and if you put a character where there should be a number, it'll prevent you. So I think the online process has helped a little bit. And again, some of the outreach that a lot of the schools have done and agencies to help them fill it out.
So now, does Villanova do all their forms online? Is a lot of their forms for financial aid online?
We require the FAFSA, we require the profile, they're both online. We also ask for copies of tax returns so that we can verify the information and to look a little deeper. And we go through the College Board, the families upload that to the College Board, and then we view everything online. So no more do we have files and files and files or drawers of files anymore. We've really consolidated that.
So an average college cost these days, just by interviewing so many people, is somewhere around $36,000, $38,000, somewhere in that range. And I know Villanova is probably a little higher than that for outside of Pennsylvania.
We don't. It doesn't matter, because as a private institution, our tuition is the same whether you're in state or out of state. So if you're going to a state school, that's where the difference in tuition usually. Excuse me.
No, that I didn't know. That's good. So really, my question then becomes, because of the high costs of colleges these days, do you see a lot more families out there asking, we're just average families? Is there anything else that the school can do? Do you get those type of questions by the families?
We usually get them once the award is out, and whether we were meeting 100% of need, and we don't have the capability right now to award 100% of everybody's need. But some groups we are very, very close, but even those families will still come back. And again, because they'll look at it and say, is there anything more you can do? Can you reduce the loan? Can you, I'm just a little short because of something else. Again, we'll take an appeal. If it's something that we can work with, we'd be more than happy to. Some things we can consider, some things we can't consider. Sometimes they want us to consider lifestyle choices that either us or the state or the federal government just can't take into consideration.
Right, and I've also noticed families that are divorced also have a bigger need as well. Does the university look at divorced families differently than people that are married?
For the FAFSA form, we only look at the non-custodial. Well, the FAFSA form only asks about the non-custodial parent. The profile asks for custodial and non-custodial. At this point in time at Villanova, we're not looking at the non-custodial. There probably will be a sea change to that soon, because if there are two families, custodial, non-custodial parents that have resources, we should be looking at both of them. Again, most of the other private schools will do that, but if a school is offering just based on the FAFSA, they cannot ask anything about the non-custodial for federal or state aid, only for institutional aid.
Interesting. And the amount of different types of loans that the school has to offer, there's quite a number of different, from Stanford loans to grants to so on and so forth. You can ask that to all the families. You can tell them to apply for any of those.
By filling out the FAFSA, the family's really applying for everything. The family doesn't have to check off a box and say they want this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when they get an award, they can always refuse something. They can refuse a loan or work study, but it doesn't always mean that we're going to replace that loan that they've refused with the grant. They want that to happen, but that doesn't always happen. It's not where they're just checking off and saying, I want this, I don't want that. We're making an assumption after we determine their financial need, which is the family contribution minus the cost of attendance. we're making their package based on the need, and we're going to work with all of the resources that we have at hand to, again, make the best offer that we can to the family.
So one of my questions then is, I've had banks on the show that offer loans to students. Is that an option for families? Is to go to a bank, financial institution?
What we recommend is that families first look at the federal government because they're mostly the better terms. For the student, it's the federal direct loan or Perkins, but that's going to be phasing out very soon. If it's a nursing school, there's nursing loan. And then the next loan for a parent would be the direct plus loan. So you've got the student side, the direct loan, and then the Perkins or nursing, and the parent, the plus. The next phase, if a family doesn't want to take out the plus, because the plus is the parent name, if the parent says, nope, this is all little Johnny, I'm not going to do anything, I want my student to borrow everything, they could look at an alternative loan, which is the student's the borrower, but what they might forget is that they need a cosigner, and it's typically the parent. Again, the family needs to maybe do a little bit of comparison and kind of,
Before they do something.
we'll give them some tools to help them do that, but we can't make the final decision for that. Just like some families say, you know what, I'm going to use my home and do a little leveraging from my home equity. So there's a lot of ways to finance the education, but that's in the, we could help them, we can't make that final decision.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give families that their sons or daughters are coming to Villanova University? What advice do you want to give to those families?
I think my most important advice is for them to apply for aid. We will work with them and tell them what they're eligible for or what they're not eligible for, especially with the costs that are rising. We have too many families that say, oh, I can't afford a Villanova education. And yet when you're looking at, yeah, you have need, and they don't realize that, and they're just looking at the cost and not the net cost of it. So apply, and we'll work through the process. And until you have, our offer and all the other offers on the table, then you can make that decision. Don't select yourself out of that pool if this is the right place for us. And the other, this is really timely, is that the application deadline's moved up a little bit. You can now fill out the FAFSA October 1, and before October 1 this year, you couldn't do that. You had to wait till January, so that's kind of a plug for the new FAFSA timeline.
Well, thank you very much for
You're
coming.
welcome.
Appreciate it. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.